I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful. Thank you very much, Bibi.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. It's a great honor.
And I think we can work out a peace between us and the entire Middle East with President Trump's leadership. And by working together, I think we can establish a very, very broad peace that will include all our neighbors.
I think Iran wants to meet. I think they want to make peace, and I'm all for it.
Imagine
A podcast.
where time drifts slowly,
A podcast.
Where
Isaac
carries you away.
So let me be clear. We tortured some folks.
If you don't like what we tell you to believe in, we'll kill you.
Hey, hi, hello, it's Isaac. Welcome back to Coexist Inc. I want to start today's episode by reading a little excerpt from a Haaretz article, of all places, titled, "Now I Understand Why Israel is Denying Journalists Access to the Appalling Scene in Gaza." And there are portions of an upcoming book that have already been published in French. For some reason, we have to wait till January 2026 to get the book itself. But it's one of the only Western historians, I should say, because I'm sure there are lots of Palestinian historians, if they haven't been targeted by the IOF yet, who has been allowed to officially document the horrors in the Gaza Strip. His name is Jean-Pierre Filou, and he spent a month in the killing fields. In December 2024, after obtaining all the necessary authorizations from Israel, Filou arrived in Amman and made his way to the border with Israel. There he boarded a bus along with a group of French physicians and with an Israeli military police escort, and they entered the Strip through the Kerem Shalom crossing, where the group was met by officials of the United Nations. He was permitted to bring medications for personal use only and up to 3 kilograms, that's 6.6 pounds for us Americans, of food. Filou spent a month in the bombarded Strip. The book he wrote was about that experience, titled Un historien à Gaza. Morning is frozen, never whole, Filou says, describing the current phenomenon in the Strip of residents writing the names of the dead on the ruins of homes, in the rubble itself, as a sort of memorial. If the deceased is a boy or a girl, a little drawing is usually added next to the name. After returning from Gaza, he added another heartrending element to this state of disintegration, the wholesale death of parents and small children. The tragedy of Gaza's orphans is one of the harshest disasters, he told his audience. Gazan society, which I knew in the past as a well-protected within the family structure, collapsed under the weight of the extensive massacre. Wounded orphans remain abandoned in hospitals without relatives, even distant ones, coming to visit them. For his part, Filou says during our conversation he saw in Gaza a place where, quote, international law, basic human rights, the Geneva Convention, the attitude towards human rights, all are being tossed aside without hesitation and being supplanted by raw, random, and very violent force. The Gazan monster, he warns, will not be contained within fences, but will spill out across the globe. It is threatening the whole world in a very basic and very immediate way. Especially heartbreaking were the children he saw. In the past, the school children of Gaza had uniforms and school bags, Filou, he writes in his book. Today they are street children, visited by death and wandering. In the open garbage dumps they scrounge for paper, cardboard, nylon, anything that can be used to light a small fire and provide a bit of heat. They barely drag jerry cans bigger than they are. And this is the part that really got me. It really, really got me. Despite the children's abject hunger, Filou relates that he saw them sharing bits of food with scrawny stray cats. When he asked them why they were doing that, they explained to him that they know what it feels like to be hungry and didn't want the cats to feel like that. The Palestinians must truly be the most saintly people on earth today. These stories are so hard to read, and it seems like we get them every single day. And I'm always afraid of becoming numb to the images and stories we get out of Gaza on a daily basis. I mean, it really wears you down. There's this one young man from Gaza named Issa who I've given probably $1,000 to, thanks to Jeremy Lafredo. He's the one who verified that Issa was a real person and not some scammer, because you're always worried about being scammed. And people who are scamming Gazan money are going straight to hell. That's for certain. But I've given him money, and I keep giving him money when I can. And he messages me almost every single day saying, "Isaac, why have you abandoned us? Isaac, why have you forgotten us? Isaac, we need you right now." And it's killing me. It's really hard to, I don't know, just buy a silly thing instead of just giving that money that I bought that silly thing with to Issa or anyone in Gaza. If you can spare money, I think it's just good to give without care. Don't worry too much. It's the least you can do if you got it. I posted this on social media, and it upset my mother a lot because she said, "I don't know what you are advocating. I don't know what you mean." But I said, what is happening in Gaza will be exported to the world and straight to your doorstep. But it will be different because no one else will be watching your death, not the way we are watching Gaza now. Because there will be no one there to watch. No one will be watching you because they will be experiencing their own annihilation. And you will be the only witness of your own horrific annihilation, your own horrific death. It's very hard to see the kindness in humanity these days, although I see it with these Palestinian people. I mean, these kids who are feeding stray cats when they have nothing should give you strength enough to believe in the goodness of humanity, that it's worth going on, that it's worth fighting. Still, you have selfish people who either don't care or believe that, or rationalize this genocide somehow. And maybe you can't reach them with all these images, all this evidence of death, of Holocaust. So I wonder how can we get to them to care? And maybe it's just about their own self-preservation. That's all that they really care about. And maybe that's at the foundation of things all we care about. And so the pitch I would make to these people, and if you need to have these conversations with friends or relatives who are intransigent in their callousness or nihilism towards Gaza, tell them that this is just a proving ground. This will come for all of us. They are experimenting with technology so that when it's time to turn the gun on the rest of us, when they deem us in the way of their projects, when they deem us surplus goods, this technology will be used against us too. This is a matter of extinction. And it's not going to remain in Gaza. And today's episode, we talk about Alligator Alcatraz, which you shouldn't call it that. Call it what it is. Alligator Auschwitz. It is a concentration camp. And don't let anyone bog you down in the definitions of things, saying, well, technically, it's not a concentration camp because XYZ. Don't even entertain that conversation. This is a fucking concentration camp. And it's here in America. And they're building more of them everywhere else now, too. And right now, yes, it is being used largely for our immigrant population, brown folk. And so my mom doesn't need to worry too much yet. I'm a big, dumb white guy. I'm very low on the list. But they will come for me too. Because when they don't have the bodies, which they are making money off of, this Alligator Auschwitz, which is costing upwards of $500 million per year, is about making money. And when they don't have, when ICE no longer has the brown immigrant bodies to throw in these detention centers, they will throw slightly less brown people in there until it's just, albinos would be in there too. And so you can advocate to anyone who resists anything other than absolute disdain, absolute horror at what's happening in Gaza, what's happening to our immigrant population here. Just tell them it will come for them too. If not in this life, certainly in the next. So today I'm joined again by returning guest and resident Florida expert Ryan Ray to talk about Alligator Auschwitz and the forever stains on our American history.
I think it's very important for everyone right now to get as healthy as possible because hospitals aren't going to be so helpful in the near future, especially if you don't have insurance for it. And you're going to need to know how to fight. I think everyone needs to get their body right because we're in for it, I think, in the very near future.
I think that definitely being in fighting shape is always a good idea. And I agree that we're probably going through a time of belt tightening, which is, obviously a euphemism for widespread human misery and contraction of the hospital healthcare infrastructure, probably starting approximately now. So yeah, I agree. Anything that you don't have to go to the hospital for, let's avoid.
Yeah, let's take care of ourselves and each other because you need to learn how to run a mile in under 10 minutes is what I'm saying. You need to learn how to run away. Yeah.
Listener challenge.
This is going to be a bummer of a fucking episode. Forewarning everybody. And to bum us all out with me is the inimitable Ryan Ray. Thank you for joining me, Ryan.
Thank you for having me, Isaac.
Yeah, we're talking Florida. We're talking Alligator Auschwitz. We're talking about our sister state, Texas. I think Texas is a good corollary for Florida too. And all the floods there.
Our measles sister.
Yeah. Malaria too. I think they had this malaria outbreaks just like we did. But yeah, shit is. It's been a rough week, dude. It's like the news after Mamdani's win, which felt like a nice little gentle win. It's just been one bummer after another.
There are years and weeks happen. And then there's like the last couple of weeks, which has been the most Florida week. I mean, breaking its own record of just recently, but one of the most Florida times and one of the darkest chapters in our nation's official political history, no question.
And Florida's the vanguard for this, it seems.
As it always has been, as you and I have talked about, and I've pontificated to years for anyone who will listen to me. Yeah, absolutely. The future is Florida, as we know, and a lot of the worst practices that we're seeing, the torture chambers that are being visited upon Americans, a lot of them were perfected and kind of forged here in Florida. Tallahassee, really.
Yeah, Tallahassee, the real heart of darkness right now, which should come as no surprise to anybody who's been to Tallahassee. Beautiful city, gorgeous city, absolutely. But nestled with evil. Let's talk about Alligator Alcatraz. I know we shouldn't call it that because it's doing free branding for them.
That's the name, though, right? It's like Gulf of America.
It's the official fucking name now.
That's the nomenclature. That's the government name. Which
is just it's so fucking cartoonish. So let's go to the very recent history of this because it just happened. I mean, it shows what government is capable of doing when it puts its mind to something. It seemed like this camp just popped up overnight. And I want to talk about the process in which this camp developed and the characters who are developing it. So to the uninitiated, if people don't know what Alligator Alcatraz is, Ryan, would you please explain?
Yes. So I always find myself having to do these anchorman, voice of God, we have to situate ourselves in this context just because there's just this permanent present that's happening and everything just washes and it whites out from itself. But I do want to start by saying that Alligator Alcatraz and this effort is one of the biggest, most insane things that's ever happened in Florida government history, state history. It's one of the most significant expenditures of money outside any kind of public process ever. Um, and we'll dig into the process, but I want to start by saying it is the craziest. It's one of the most insane movements of money, capital, people, literal commandeering. The actual term commandeering is used as a legal doctrine in the state here, using state of emergency powers to do all this in an amount of time that is completely shocking and unparalleled ever. So, Alligator Alcatraz, for the uninitiated, is an immigrant detention camp in the Everglades. There is an old logistical county, Miami-Dade County-owned property where they've had the occasion to fly things in and out, and it's a bit of infrastructure. It was one of the only bits of infrastructure in the entire undeveloped Everglades, one of the most ecologically important areas in the entire country, and in this hemisphere, really. And that has been commandeered for the purposes of creating an immigration detention camp. So, immigration is a federal, federal prerogative. It's not a state government thing. Federal courts, including just recently, including the same actors that we're looking at right now, have opined upon this extensively. There's this kind of a shadow game of the state doing this with the blessing of federal authorities. And yes, to a degree, they are sort of letting it happen or not stopping it. But the DHS and federal government has said over and over again, this is not us, this is y'all. We're not paying for it, by the way. You may be reimbursed for this or that, but essentially this is something that the state decided to do whole cloth, $450 million in costs so far for what essentially amounts to a group of basically tented detention facilities, basically large tents that are housing, like, very much like a camp, like a refugee camp, essentially, is the thing that I think people are most familiar with that it would be. I mean, that's really what it is. And again, this is for folks that would be rounded up by ICE raids, close coordination with state and federal authorities there. But yes, I mean, we've seen something that we've never seen before, $450 million. Again, I'll wrap up and kick back to you, but this whole process of creating Alligator Alcatraz is happening in a context where the Attorney General really seems to be James Uthmeyer, the former DeSantis chief of staff, has been sort of the quarterback of this issue. He is basically been held in contempt by federal court on the issue of overstepping state authority. And again, he was not elected, right? Mm-hmm. He was appointed. I'm sorry if this is too much granular stuff, but just to situate us, the Attorney General, James Uthmeyer, was very much driving this process along with the governor, and he was DeSantis's former chief of staff. So we have an Attorney General with an interesting, very DeSantis-heavy background driving this process. And at the same time, federal courts have said, hey, you specifically, Attorney General James Uthmeyer, maybe take it easy on enforcing state immigration laws because they conflict with federal jurisdiction. He has just like cruised past that sort of a note of caution from the court, which of course a legal court order, and has basically done the most insanely opposite thing that you could ever imagine of being careful about state authority, which is commandeer local government-owned area to create an immigration detention camp. This did not go through the legislature. This was not approved in any way, and so that's kind of the broad landscape of what Alligator Alcatraz is and how it came to be.
And I want to get into James Uthmeyer and also our dear friend Brian Griffin, aka Max Nordau on Twitter.
Allegedly.
Alleged. Sure. Okay. But the reason this can exist, the reason it happened so quickly was because of the perpetual state of emergency that Florida has been in, I think since 2022 or 2023, was it?
Yeah, I think it's 22. There was a state of emergency about immigration declared by the governor.
So he has renewed it, I think, every 60 days or 30 days. It has to be renewed.
It's renewed periodically, one or the other.
Right.
And again, just to spell that out, sorry to get all government speaky, but yeah, it's an important thing. I think that we can talk about how, I think that really we've entered, like, I think, in a state of exception. We're under emergency powers that were declared under the Biden administration. Just stick with me for a sec. So under 2022, under the Biden administration, the governor declared that immigration violations were a state of emergency for the state of Florida, and gave himself, and was handed by the legislature, a big new raft of powers, the ability to go around procurement, right? The ability to direct staff in ways that avoid oversight. So specifically for a hostile Biden administration, it was kind of a political stunt as part of his presidential campaign, to basically go as hardcore as you could against a federal immigration, doctrine at the time. And so that was never undone. The legislature could end that at any time. Jason Garcia from Seeking Rents has done amazing work spelling this stuff out.
Yes.
But, this could be undone at any time by the legislature. And again, it's a possibility as they get chippier and dicier with one another. But yes, we're under emergency powers that should really never have existed because there's no legitimate basis for an immigration state of emergency that was under another administration. Presumably he agrees with the Trump administration, kind of ending the perception that
Right.
But nonetheless, since it has basically just become a way for him to become a super powerful governor and concentrate more authority in himself, that's the whole reason for the season, how we're even here in the first place. This ordinarily is a mechanism not available to any other governor who's existed ever in the past.
And it's all done under the auspices of governors having these powers during states of emergencies, like actual ones, like hurricanes, for instance. And the same mechanisms through which the government can build emergency housing and bypass a lot of legislature and red tape in the wake of a hurricane for people who are displaced, they're using the exact same mechanism to build a fucking concentration camp. And not only that, you have no bid contracts. I mean, this is fucking Iraq war shit too. And you can look at the National Emergencies Act that was signed September 14th in 2001 in the wake of 9/11 that every single president has signed every single year since 2001. And so we've been living in this constant state of emergency that bypasses all the checks and balances and consolidates power in these executive branches. And so we're just seeing Florida do that to an extreme degree. I think a degree that we haven't seen nationally, probably not since like Japanese internment camps.
No, that's exactly what I think that's the only comparable cases. Yeah, absolutely.
But
And
you
I
can go
think
on
that
Twitter and you'll see fucking people describe the amount of historical revision that happens in this country online in particular. But you're seeing it with DeSantis's media goons looking at the Japanese internment camp and saying, actually, it wasn't that bad. Like, that was okay. Like, it was justified. People are fucking justifying this shit now. And I mean, it should come as no surprise that they're simultaneously justifying nuking Japan. But it seems like there's nothing that shocks anybody anymore. And I want to get into that, like the numbness of the American people, the unquenchable fucking bloodthirst of the American populace. But first, let's get into some more nitty gritty about this internment camp.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting aspects of it. One is there's been a kind of a rift. I think that you could see some interesting dynamics that really kind of matter here. In the legislature and DeSantis have been in sort of this fight about who has what power, because DeSantis has helped himself to easily the most power of any governor in Florida of all time, years-long emergencies, etc. And the legislature has recently, or sort of the conventional wisdom is that the legislature has become more interested in asserting itself after letting themselves be a rubber stamp over and over again for years, that they've been asserting themselves, and they've done a few things. But they essentially on this one rolled over. There was no resistance whatsoever. In fact, there was kind of a grip and grin, kind of a velvet rope, photo op, press kind of a release, kind of a deal that happened there. And you see legislative leaders that had been doing fist to fist, hand to hand battle with DeSantis in the legislature about Hope Florida and about other things. I believe that Peter Schorsch actually had a pretty spicy take that he deleted, which was that Alligator Alcatraz is the Hope Florida of immigration camps.
In that it's like a fucking complete scam, because this should have cost $500 million.
It is. It's absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
This is again. It's easy to get lost in the sauce of what has all led up to this, but I think it's important to know that this is completely ridiculous and completely uncalled for, and totally uncharted territory, where we've gone from a state of emergency where the norms, there's a kind of there's kind of an authoritarianism that can occur, but also the law is like still sort of ambiently there and kind of still the default, although it can be sort of superseded at any time. And I think that Florida's state government has passed into banana republic territory where even its own internal structure is totally up for grabs, and there's no semblance of any kind of any functional operative legal framework.
Yeah, which everyone else around the country listening to this, it's coming for you too. Like this is the vanguard. This is where all state government is going until eventually it's federalized.
You saw fake electors, Trump electors that were ready to overthrow and contest the election results that happened in Pennsylvania. Formerly a swing state. Sort of a Great Lakes-ish, classic blue that we would always have, that Democrats would always win, kind of a state. It's definitely internal. Again, we perfected it here, and the torture instruments of contemporary MAGA fascism were forged and perfected here. But that doesn't mean that they'll stay here. Absolutely not. I wouldn't bet against some of this stuff being adopted. Probably this year in a lot of states.
So besides James Uthmeyer, who looks like Tim Tebow's unathletic brother, is how I describe him. I can't believe he's my age, dude. No one, I should not. I can't believe this guy's 37 years old. He also was responsible for the Martha's Vineyard migrant kidnappings that occurred, I think, a few years ago. And like you said, he's I think the only attorney general held in contempt of court in the United States.
Again, if anything matters, which arguably it does not, right? Mm-hmm. But if anything matters, of course, he is unelected because Ashley Moody, the U.S. Again, this is all in any states. You, as a long-time person who's looked at this stuff, who's chronicled and cared about the history of Florida's internal state government for like decades now, you've never seen anything like this. But just alone the shockwaves of a attorney general becoming a U.S. senator, being tapped by Trump, being, for that purpose, basically selected by Trump and tapped by DeSantis for that. And then, having DeSantis put in his own sort of personal lawyer, like his guy, his chief of staff into that role. Even right there, we're in territory where you're thinking about an abrogation or a distance between any sort of elected consent. Right. And taking basically literal no mandate. Right. And taking that into the most extreme form of what you could ever possibly, any power you could be allowed. You're really just basically, I think you're seeing a pretty active destruction of the idea that government action is based on consent from voters.
Mm-hmm. And the other kind of construction you're witnessing, which to me is secondary to the inhumanity of this thing, because it's poorly designed. It has
flooded already.
It's already flooded. I mean, they're trying to demonize alligators and pythons, which like they're fine. Like you're not going to get killed by alligators, especially pythons. They're not going to get you. But they're portraying the Everglades as some awful, dangerous place. They're even putting ice hats on shitty AI-generated, mean-looking alligators, which is like kind of like, oh, so you guys are like evil bad guys. I'm very confused by their moral framework. The moral world that they've constructed it makes zero fucking sense. You have people like
have they adopted the villain?
Yes, they really are leaning into the villain, which is, and I do want to get into this in the second half of the show, just like the state of morality in America. But the environmental toll that this is going to take on the Everglades, which is already in a precarious place, which we've already allotted $20 billion to restore, and this venture is going to significantly undo all the good work we've done to restore the Everglades. So you do have a lot of people, a lot of erstwhile conservative conservation influencers, because we have a lot of those here in Florida. The most famous one, I think, is that barefoot guy Garrett. What's he know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's out there.
He's a nice guy. I do love what he does. If you haven't seen his social media, he's like this very friendly, big dumb white guy who walks around the Everglades barefoot, just like yoinking all kinds of different animals, including like venomous snakes. And he clearly loves these animals, like has great love for them. Except he's incredibly conservative. Like if you look at his Instagram and who he's following, it's Andrew Tate, it's Donald Trump Jr., it's all of these conservative influencers. And he even commented recently about this, the environmental toll that this concentration camp is going to take on the Everglades. And he says, like, he doesn't feel at home in any party. And he's like, the left has gone nuts. But, like, the conservatives have gone too far on this one. And it's just, I think that's what drives me so crazy is this is, like, your one thing, dude. You're a fucking environmentalist. This is your one thing, and yet you still can't fully commit to fighting against the people who are destroying what you love. You still are fixated on what exactly? Trans women in sports? Like, what is your fucking deal, dude? That you can't just completely say fuck the Republican Party. They're not our friends.
I think it is getting kind of too heavy. First of all, I mean, I could see I think that Florida, if Elon Musk's America Party actually ever materializes.
The stupidest name in the world.
I'm telling you what.
The America Party? The America Party?
If it ever actually exists as a thing that you can register for, I bet Florida would be in the top handful of people that would register. So who knows what the political science laboratory... And we continue to be on the bleeding tip of the spear, and then the crazier thing after that. I saw Dean Frazier, who's a guy I respect, who works with Florida Keepers, which is like kind of like pro-wild Florida kind of social media and environmental advocacy group. He's a conservative who I think I saw just yesterday on Instagram on the other Everything app, where he was basically saying conservatives should adopt environmentalism, and that always kind of was the thing, the idea of conservationism. You know, obviously, again, nothing matters, right? But there was a tradition at one point of a Teddy Roosevelt, bull moose republicanism that respected public lands. Obviously, politics have just become so tribal, and Republicans just basically see the state government as something that you just bash, your enemies with. But I mean, to the extent that the Florida state government does serve vital functions that matter, protecting this stuff. And I actually do definitely think, like in Sarasota where you are, in Tallahassee up where I am, all around the state, I really do think that everyone who's born here, or even everyone who's been here for a while, is annoyed by the insane overgrowth, the road expansion, the heinously expensive stuff that way. So I kind of actually do think there are interesting possibilities for bipartisan or transpartisan coalitions about this stuff.
The environment has always seemed to be the thing that could unite disparate political worldviews. However, it's like this is still not enough. First of all, the Everglades is a completely misunderstood organism within the state of Florida that making it seem like you go in the Everglades, you're going to get eaten by alligators is just, that doesn't happen. Like, you're not going to get eaten by alligators. And there have been zero cases of pythons attacking humans. So I did like how this is part of how I think they're trying to scam the state and potentially the federal government out of money by saying, we don't need extra security. We can have vinyl tarps as soft barriers to what did Donald Trump say? Like some of the most vicious people in the world.
And is this the model going forward, Mr. President?
It can be. I mean, you don't always have land so beautiful and so secure. We have a lot of bodyguards and a lot of cops that are in the form of alligators. You don't have to pay them so much. But I wouldn't want to run through the Everglades for long. It will keep people where they're supposed to be. This is a very important thing.
Who are being detained there, which again is just like crazy. I can't. I am so appalled by this shit. I swear to fucking God, if I see anybody around me wearing Alligator Alcatraz merch, I will fucking hit you in the face. Like, I will fight you. That is a absolute guarantee.
It does seem to be. It really presses the question. Like they've gone full all the way through the looking glass, and so we'll see. I mean, I do think that the Republican schisms are beginning to get really heavy and fracture, and I've thought that for a while now. But hey, I mean, again, we do have to live here. You do have to keep your head somewhere, and I think that people aren't really happy with more D.R. Horton sprawl coming up around them in their county. Everyone doesn't like it.
No, and especially after last year's pickleball park fiasco, where it was really encouraging watching people stand up to DeSantis's land grab. And they did another one earlier this year where they tried that land swap that also fell apart because of people saying, no, we want to preserve this land. The fact that they're just doing this version of it, which is like I hate pickleball. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fucking fascist, but there's no fucking comparison between a pickleball court and a literal concentration camp. Well, maybe there's a little bit of overlap, but not that much.
We're talking apples and concentration camps.
Apples and concentration camps. And I'm appalled by the brazenness of this. And again, the merchandise to me is one of the more despicable components of this venture, with that absolute little freak Benny Johnson.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. We are taking you inside Alligator Alcatraz today with President Trump. As you can see behind me, we got a Jurassic Park style opening here. Let's freaking get going and see what's inside.
Who has to be one of the most despicable, like viscerally disturbing characters. Just the way he speaks and the way he laughs is so unnerving to me. And here he is like giggling with an Alligator Alcatraz trucker hat on, being like, this is so cool. This is what we voted for.
I just want everyone to know that there's official Alligator Alcatraz merch. There it is, provided to us by the state of Florida. Incredible. And yeah. Would you rock this drip? Look at that.
There's just a toady fanboyism that's just really off-putting with Benny Johnson, and you just get the sense that the smiling, the insanely smiling face of fascism is really expressed through Benny. I mean, that's a freak right there.
I was thinking about this the other day. I guess there's that Amazon TV show, Man in the High Castle, which is supposed to show what it would look like if Germany won, which they kind of did. Like, we live in the Fourth Reich, except it's Americana, and there's something so stupid and ostentatious and embarrassing about the whole things. Like, Nazis would have at least better taste, in like such a thing.
That's a scorching take. I think that our contemporary culture is not necessarily well organized for flourishing. I think that there's other practices that we could have as a society that probably create better outcomes. What should we do, Isaac? We need to get in shape. I know that. We need to get in shape. I think here in Florida, again, not to be corny or too narrowly one-dimensional here, but we do have a state that 56%, 57% voted for, a woman's right to choose, our constitutional right to privacy, and, smoking recreational marijuana. So those are the same people that are going to be voting in our state next year. And I think that there's a little bit more texture than we give it credit for. I really don't think that they're going to eat Byron Donalds. I mean, you hear things about people getting shaken down around Tallahassee in exchange, people who are subject to line item vetoes and other kind of goodies and appointments, basically being pressured into not supporting Congressman Byron Donalds, who, of course, like all the other Florida delegation members, voted at lockstep for the big beautiful bill. Obviously, I think one of the worst pieces of legislation to come out of Congress in decades. I think coming through here, we have the largest number of Medicaid cuts. People are going to be thrown off Medicaid health insurance of any state in the entire country. And I think that there's going to be a serious problem, frankly, just because of the straight racism of the GOP electorate. I think that there's going to be institutional money and cultural friction that is probably underrated. Plus, if you have a new party that's right wing and well funded coming into the picture, I don't know. I think that there's at least the deck could be shuffled.
I'm not one of those people who thinks that voting is complete horseshit. It's just not enough. And I think the irony here is that while all the checks and balances, that it would at least like gum up and slow down this authoritarian power, it has been completely eroded. Yeah, those roadblocks barely exist anymore, and they don't have to follow the rules, and they get to do whatever they want and just say, fuck you. You know, there's really no consequences. And yet the rest of us have to wait 2 years to do anything about it, to vote. Like, the idea that so we're still following the rules. It feels like sucker shit. You know, like, you're a sucker if you think that that's what's going to change anything, that's how we're going to stop this, is the typical fucking vote or die bullshit, which you should still do. I'm not saying we should abandon that, but you saw how quickly this concentration camp went up.
Oh my God.
You can't wait to vote against this. It's not a matter of voting anymore because they don't give a fuck and they don't follow the rules. So why should you? That's how I feel.
That ligature, I was saying that I really do feel, call me old fashioned, but I do think that's that severance there, that severing of the line between what people want and what the government does. It's been neglected and downplayed for a long time, but my God, I mean, just the straight people don't want this, man. I think that does matter.
And it does. You're right.
And I think that we have this kind of interesting proxy that'll happen in the New York City mayor's race that happens this year. You know, you've got 125 days or something to play out. Trump has, what do you predict will happen? He has said he, quote, holds all the cards and he will not let Mamdani win. Who knows what that looks like?
I mean, it will be very interesting. And it does feel like these people don't know how to win. Like, if you're gonna cheat to win, you at least gotta like keep up appearances. If it's just like blatant like fucking cheating, then I think people don't have the same sort of stomach for it, because we do live, and not to quote Adam Curtis too much, but there's like a hyper normalization occurring here. And I think it's most explicitly seen in the TV show Love Island, which is for another episode I'm going to do.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, part of me is like, I hope in this weird way that, because we're talking about New York now, but whatever, because being the mayor of New York City is a shitty fucking job and it will be nothing but disappointing, that Trump would be doing the left or the resistance a favor if he were to stick his hand in there and say, fuck you, you know? Like, if they turned him into maybe not a literal martyr, but like a figurative martyr, but maybe a literal martyr, that would be the best possible scenario. Is not Mamdani becoming the actual mayor of New York City and being sabotaged by every single fucking institution, especially the fucking police. I'm sorry, like, if you think Mamdani is going to change anything, it's a symbolic victory, and it can only be that. It does show that there's an appetite for it. There are encouraging things to be taken from that. But Mamdani as mayor will actually sour people towards, I think, a more radical movement.
Hey, I could well see that. I don't know. I think that he has sort of demonstrated the chops. He's got a vision, but you know, maybe he could just be another Bill de Blasio. You know, that's certainly a possibility, and there could be a way in world that in which that this is deflected. Yeah. I think the big proxy playing out is certainly, you know, New York is a special place to Donald Trump, as is Florida.
Yeah, I mean it's all connected, I guess, but I think the other things that we can do in the moment to slow things down. You know, I always say cost-benefit analysis. Make it more costly than people are willing to sacrifice or give to, was the vendors who are involved in this concentration camp. I actually spoke to one of the vendors that's based here in Sarasota. It's called U.S. Tent Rental. And I talked to an anonymous employee that he would not tell me his name because he was saying, "Oh, we're being doxxed and getting death wet, so we're actually the victims in this situation." And he literally said, "We're just providing humanitarian aid."
He's just doing his job.
Yes, he said, "We're providing humanitarian aid to the government contractors who are working out there," which the fucking gall of that was crazy. Not to mention, this guy had a fucking accent. He is not from here. I couldn't quite place the accent. It wasn't quite Israeli. It had like a South African tint to it, but I don't think he was a white guy.
No one wants to work anymore, not even at the detention camp.
Digging your own grave, brother. You're digging your own grave. So having this conversation with this vendor was very interesting because it was, I mean, you know, I'm sure all my listeners are familiar with the Eichmann in Jerusalem and the banality of evil. And it was very much obvious. I even asked the guy, I said, are you familiar with Eichmann in Jerusalem? And he said, no. And I said, okay, just curious. I didn't go any further than that. But I kept trying to explain to him why people were upset that he was doing what he was doing, and he couldn't quite grasp it. I kept telling him, you know, you're saying like that so you were providing medical tents, water tents, cooling tents, food tents for this operation. Could this operation exist without your services? And he was saying, well, I don't want to speculate on that. And I was like, I said, no, it sounds like you were providing a vital service that helped this concentration camp. I didn't say the word concentration camp. I said this detention facility to be built. And he refused to admit that was the case. And I was saying, okay, fine. Are you telling me that your logic is if you weren't going to do it, somebody else was? And he still couldn't even admit to that. So there's still this idea that they have of themselves. He kept mentioning, listen, we've done 20 years worth of charity work in the area, and we can't believe all the good work we've done is being undone just because of one little job that we've had that's totally legal and not a problem. Punish him, not death threats. Punish the business.
There's a lot of open moral questions that is deserve. You know, this ordinarily state government historically in Florida has not been about these kinds of, you know, moral Sophie's choices. But that's where we are right now, and it's totally elective is the thing. There's no reason, demand. It's not being popularly called for. I'm sure the idea would be voted down if it was put on a referendum. I think that I like your focus. I think Peter Thiel is really important here because I think Peter Thiel really gets at. He isn't just a lot of right-wing architects of sort of contemporary MAGA and the sort of right-wing fascist tendency that we're seeing, authoritarianism that we're seeing enacted in many places in America today. A lot of them, Thiel is not just, a lot of people have operated in the gray space between what you can get away with in terms of what the electorate will tolerate. And what they're willing to accept. But Thiel is entirely hostile to getting permission from voters in the first place. He has contempt for the idea that a majority should decide. You know, he thinks that some people are worthy and others aren't by virtue of their race, by virtue of their personal characteristics. And he in the future doesn't want to. He's not in the enterprise of convincing people to come along with him. He doesn't care about that. He just wants to create a bottleneck in the levers of power to basically break off the ability for the future voices of folks to matter and direct the public conversation anymore. And we're really in that foot race very much as we speak, as a state and as a country.
And it all does feel like it's for show half of the time. The Alligator Alcatraz rollout did mask DeSantis vetoing an anti-corruption bill that surprisingly made its way through the very conservative legislation in Florida.
Only one no vote to limit his powers to play in elections. And to stop government employees from basically squeezing lobbyists and soliciting campaign contributions basically on the job, which I think every conservative, everybody agrees is not good. And yet DeSantis vetoed, yes, the very morning that Donald Trump visited the Alligator Alcatraz facility.
Which was also kind of a funny shit show because that storm rolled through. Did you watching them interview him while the wind and the rain is just battering these very thin vinyl tents? It shouldn't have given anybody confidence in such a thing. That is the cruelty of it too. It does seem like the cruelty is the point. I know that's an expression that a lot of people say, but it is. I mean, it is just fucking mean.
It's a vulgar display of excess power. Absolutely.
And that seems, I'm always shocked by how far people are willing to go with this shit and how much they cheer it on. Again, I know I'm talking about the internet by and large, but that's still real to a certain extent. And watching people gloat about this, gleefully cheer on this detention center, and in fact even profit from it. I found this one woman who was selling AI generated Alligator Alcatraz merch, and so the word alligator was spelled with one L instead of two. And she belonged to some Christian outreach thing, and she was like this nice little old gray lady, like wearing like a lot of like turquoise necklaces. You'd think would just be like not want to fucking punish innocent people. And then someone called them out for it. And then a lot of the responses was, thanks, I'm going to go support her and buy this right now. Great, my church outreach company is going to buy all of these shirts from her. The blood, I keep wondering, and this is especially, Gaza is the ultimate case here, but even your neighbors here, people when is the taste of blood going to turn into ash in their mouths? Are they truly unquenchable? Is it truly an unquenchable bloodthirst that we have in this country? And in the very near future, we're going to see public extrajudicial lynchings broadcast on Instagram. Is that where we're going?
There's no bottom that is suggested by what's currently happening. And I think that the spectacle that Alligator Alcatraz will continue to be, I'll tell you a lot. These kinds of facilities, if you're a UN peacekeeper in another country, you're saying that this is very troubling and a sign of abuse of human rights. You're looking at this as an example of the breakdown of democratic norms. You're looking at this as something that shows you a deeply sick society with a deep moral sickness, really. You're looking at a really... you've again have a government apparatus in one of America's most major mega states, basically, I think, conceding or basically just totally dispensing with the idea that the main point of the government is to help people.
Yeah. However, and this is to bring up our second topic of the day today, which are the flash floods that just occurred in Hill County, Texas. And as of this recording, I think we're at 58 deaths, and I expect it'll get into the hundreds.
Oh my God.
And it's especially horrifying that it happened to some elementary school all-girls Christian camp. And that does seem to be affecting people. It is racist, but at least there's some humanity left, I guess. I don't know. Anybody
you begin to wonder, at what point, do the people that on TV, the extent to which that could be you, at what point is that totally abstract? And at least there's some connective, reflex in people.
Yes, it's like these little white girls, and so people are mourning it, and it's getting wall-to-wall coverage across CNN, Fox, New York Post, all this stuff. They're really it's like, oh, you care about these kids. At least you care about some kids, I guess. The kids in Gaza, they're not good enough for you, but at least to know you have a little bit of an iota of humanity left. And to any leftist who might be cheering on these deaths and being like, yeah, you get what you voted for, that's Israeli behavior. Don't do it. That's cheering on the deaths of children is Israeli behavior. You're above that. But what's in the cases of the flooding in Texas, and the thing that is especially outrageous is watching all these local emergency managers in Texas blame the National Weather Service for not telling them what's going to happen is unbelievable.
The original forecast that we received on Wednesday from the National Weather Service predicted 3 to 6 inches of rain in the Concho Valley and 4 to 8 inches of rain in the Hill Country. We worked with our own meteorologists to fine-tune that weather statement, and as many of you know, and many of you in broadcast journalism and meteorology, you can go back and look at your own forecast, and the amount of rain that fell in this specific location was never in any of those forecasts.
This rain event sat on top of that and dumped more rain than what was forecasted on both of those forks. When we got the report, it was about 7 feet or so on the South Fork, and within a matter of minutes it was up to 29 feet, and all of that converged at the Guadalupe, and that's where we saw those very quick rise in flood.
But listen, everybody got the forecast from the National Weather Service, right? You all got it. You're all in media. You got that forecast. It did not predict the amount of rain that we saw.
Yeah, there you're seeing something which is a play. You see kind of these you see fake media being planted. You see Florida's Voice basically becoming like the Pravda, just straight Soviet style, straight from the press office and blasted out through your media channels. Yeah, there's no pretense there. The death of truth in our postmodern times have been, and how it's been abused by nihilistic right-wingers has been, said many times, many ways, but you rarely see it so directly. I mean, we're seeing basically Stephen Millerism manifest here.
There were significant cuts to the National Weather Service's programs. And for them to turn around and complain and say they didn't do a good enough job after they had just completely scythed funding for these really good government services is the Republican Ouroboros. That is their entire fucking shtick, is they destroy government. They say, oh, government's bad for you. Let's get rid of government. And then when things fail, they're like, see, government's bad. We should cut more of it. And how much longer are people going to fall for that is what I wonder.
There has to be an alternative. There has to be a strong alternative. I think that's one thing that we've seen. I think that a lot of the MAGA Trump doctrine has basically has operated with such a narrow electoral mandate, largely because of the lack of something contesting against it for power. And I feel like it feels that way and it acts that way. I think you're seeing polling now that has Trump underwater, even -9, I think, on immigration, but worse than that on nearly everything else that people care about. People don't want $6 billion in already approved federal funding for school lunch programs to be withheld by the federal government based on, nothing. That's not really something that people want, and I don't want to be naive about how the fact that translates automatically into electoral success. Clearly, it doesn't. But I think that it could. I do think that this might actually. I know, I've tried to kick the Charlie Brown football before, but I really do think that this, does actually hit some gag reflex in normal people.
I would hope so, and I think that's the thing, is maybe they just had to see cute little white girls die in order for it to become and feel real. Although I'm sure they will find a way to twist this around and blame migrants. They did this, remember, last year during Milton and Helene, when FEMA ran out of money. They said, we ran out of money with FEMA dollars because of Biden housing migrants. That's why we're running out of money. And now, of course, the absolute lack of total economic logic of spending $500 million to detain 3,000 plus migrants who otherwise would be doing work, who'd be working and benefiting the economy. Not that that's not without its its whole fucking problems. I don't want to say I think that's a good thing. However, it's just costing more money now. You're complaining about migrants taking away FEMA dollars. You're literally doing that with the Alligator Auschwitz.
Again, you see the attenuation between anything that matters and the opinion about it. And, I do think that the idea that state capacity is a thing, we've obviously seen it hollowed out, privatized, contracted out. Even local governments, I think, that have traditionally built and had public works departments have basically just totally gotten so they couldn't even do that kind of work in-house if they wanted to anymore. I think that people don't want that. I think obviously it is life and death to have democratic, civilian-controlled state capacity like weather forecasts. And fighting for that is something that I try to do in my work. And it really is. It's unfortunate how this has had to play out. But I do think that there is some self-preservation instinct in the idea of our vaunted friend, the median voter, that understands that we need to have weather forecasts, we need to have air traffic controllers.
I think that is the pitch that I would make to the median voter, as explicitly and as direly as I possibly could, which is it will come for you too. These facilities they've built, the mechanisms, the institutions, like all institutions, have their own self-preservation at heart, and they want to continue to get funded and paid for. And so what are they going to fill with? Who are they going to fill all of these detention facilities with if hypothetically we were to ever get rid of migrants? You're next. You think that this is going to be contained to just them? Curtis Yarvin, speaking of a fucking teal absolute moron, tweeted this very recently when someone was criticizing why, like, deporting people, saying, I will pay $50 for a tomato, $75 for a pint of blueberries, so long as I never have to hear Spanish in public again. Deport them all. Sorry, that was a pro. That's how evil they are, is they're willing to pay $50 for a tomato because they hate the sound of Spanish so much. Curtis Yarvin added to this, I wonder if there's another domestic population capable of agricultural labor.
Right.
They're not even pretending, man. They're not even hiding that shit.
No,
they're advocating for actual slavery.
I think that there's a very distinct fondness for slavery and today's, conservative, what's left of the right wing. Absolutely, 100%. Curtis Yarvin is on the Mount Rushmore of intellectual leaders in this Trump administration's regime, and obviously, I do think that there is a extent to which that scares the normies. Yeah, it is not a winning ticket.
Yeah, so you'd think that there would be some sort of... Your normal person would look at just how Curtis Yarvin looks physically and be like, oh, I'm not listening to that guy. But when you have quite possibly the most powerful man in the country backing you, it's hard... I don't know. People will believe anything, it seems. Or you're
something versus nothing.
Anything.
I'll say that, it's an ethos. It was certainly an ethos, and it is something versus nothing. I think I've seen that in a lot of ways. You see, in the state, really a lot of the story is the extinction of the democratic apparatus. That is something that even contests really for government power, and I think nationally you see and you see the perversion and deformities that happen in the body politic when that occurs. It's really unhealthy. I think you're seeing it at the state level too. Again, not to be too on the nose constantly, but again, very much a dynamic that was honed and forged here.
I think these people have made it pretty clear that they are a threat to your life and your loved ones' lives. And if you live in a state that has like stand your ground, laws, I don't know, you should take advantage of those, I think, because these people literally want you dead. There is no reasoning with them. There is no debate. I love this. This happens when some fucking idiot comes into my comments section or whatever and wants to have like a debate about something. It's like, I am completely uninterested in debating. There is no reaching these people. They are deeply cynical and don't mean what they say. And they are power hungry. And you shouldn't let them get more power. You should take the power away as in any way possible, I think.
I think that folks that are opposing these folks have a moral obligation to succeed and to win and take back political power for working people, not the confederacy of weirdos that currently are in possession of it.
Anything else you're hopeful for, Ryan, before we close out this show?
Well, I'm hopeful for the prospects of public sentiment to change. I really am. I know speaking of debate, as the one side of the political spectrum has basically withdrawn from argument and even trying to have any sort of proposal, any kind of real ideas, give and take of exchange. I am actually speaking at Capitol Tiger Bay on July 28th. If you're in Tallahassee, I'm sitting on a forum about the future of the Democratic Party. So that'll be a good time. Super freak fans, followers of ours will know that I debated Evan Power a couple years at that same forum, a couple years ago at the same forum. So
you wiped the floor with them too.
Excited for that. Well, I think I did all right, and I've been really getting great feedback on our show, Tropical Depression. Of course, you're one of our power guests and returners. Really super excited about that. Check us out on Patreon, Tropical Depression, if you're interested. We're doing literary fiction. We're having a great stint of having Florida fiction writers. It's been really cool and interesting, and would love for y'all to check that out. And if you'd like to join us in Tallahassee, I think we are one of the best Democratic parties, or really political organizations, and most effective organizations anywhere in the state. I'm the chair
the country, I think, actually.
That's very kind of you. Leon County Democratic Party in Florida's capital city. We are truly sketching with an actually existing Democratic Party. I think implementing a good program that's built to win. So if you want to check us out, Leon Dems, get our emails, sign up, and I'm just hopeful for more good conversation with you and I, the discourse, the positive influence.
The good kind of propaganda that we're doing.
Yeah, man.
And I hope people never misunderstand me when it comes to the darkness, because I vote in every fucking thing. And I think that getting involved locally is one of the more effective things you can possibly do. Join a church, even if it's just like some like Unitarian Universalist, like LGBTQ friendly thing.
Yeah.
Get involved, like get to know people. Completely. Voting, don't give up on voting. It's just not enough. That's not, you can't just stop there, but you should vote because it's literally the least you could do. It takes next to zero effort. If you don't know who to vote for, email Ryan. He'll tell you, he knows. But yeah, it's very important we don't get too discouraged by all these things, because these people, Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel, Uthmeyer, DeSantis, they're fucking idiots, and they will fail. Like it is destined that they will fail. We just have to make sure that they don't salt the earth behind them. That's all we need to do.
I believe that the people will win in the end. I truly do. It's really good to talk with you, man.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being on.
See ya, Isaac.
See you, dude.
I'll be so glad when the sun go down.
When the sun go down.
I'll be so glad when the sun go down.
When the sun go down.
I ain't all that sleepy, but I wanna lie down.
Just wanna lie down.
I ain't all that sleepy, but I wanna lie down.
Just wanna lie down.
I wanna lie down, baby. I wanna lie down.
Just wanna lie down.
I ain't all that sleepy, but I wanna lie down.
Just wanna lie down.
Oh, what got the matter, baby? Yeah, I can't see.
Well, I can't see.
Oh, what got the matter, baby? Yeah, I can't see.
Well, I can't see.
No, the sergeant and the driver's both is down on me.
Put it down on me.
No, the sergeant and the driver's both is down on me.
Put it down on me.
Just chop your corner like I chop mine.
I chop mine.
Just chop your corner like I chop mine.
Like I chop mine.
Well, you won't be worried when the sun go down.
When the sun go down.
You'll never be worried when the sun go down.
When the sun go down.
My Lord, yeah.
When the Lord, yeah.
My Lord, yeah.
My Lord, yeah.
I made you a living when I was free.
When I was free.
I made you a living when I was free.
When I was free.
I'm in a world of trouble. You won't write to me.
Won't write to me.
I'm in a world of trouble. You won't write to me.
Won't write to me.
Won't write to me, baby.